meeting of council for whatever date it is today, March 27th. Call it to order at 3 p.m. I'll ask for a motion that from Councillor Barton that council adopt the agenda for the regular council meeting March 27th as presented.
Yeah, my motion, Mayor.
Thank you. All in favor? Carried. Consent agenda. Ask for a motion from Councillor Jones that an omnibus motion adopts the following in accordance with Council's procedure bylaw. February 15th annual meeting with Foothills School Division, March 13th regular council meeting minutes as presented, and the strategic priorities chart.
I'll give you that motion, Mayor Snodgrass.
Thank you very much. All in favor? Carried. Before we get into the agenda, any public comments regarding anything on the agenda? See none, hear none. Fire and Protective Services Annual Report. Cody?
Afternoon, Mayor and Council. Wanted to take some time today just to present our 2022 annual report with you all. And this is for the Fire Department and Protective Services. Next year, our hope is to actually include some of the RCMP stats in it. I mean, we do see those stats, but we feel it'd be really effective to have it all into one report. So before you have the Fire Department and the Protective Services. Last year we just did the Fire Department report, and with now our Protective Services piece being 1 year, we've now created a report for it. So quickly kind of highlight some of the stuff within the report. Obviously we have our org chart in there. Some of our capital purchases last year was the ladder truck, which that project is now complete and fully functional and on the road operational, and then our bunker gear washer. So both of our capital projects from last year are completed and off the books and operating in full swing. The Foothills Emergency Services Program, this has been a really huge success for us. We've talked about it at the school division board meeting there, and it continues to be a really good highlight of for our students. So right now we have students from Highwood High School, the Notre Dame Collegiate, and some from Okotoks actually coming in as well to our program. And we did have a couple returning students which graduated last year to come and finish off their training. So the community support on this has been huge, from the school division, Lions Club, Cargill, Foothills Cleaners, both school divisions, Catholic school division as well. And actually ATCO has just stepped up with a potential sponsorship for our program as well, which will help make it sustainable for now and into the future. So it's a kind of a multi-year thing. So we're just working through that with them right now as well. So through that, the students have gained a lot of different knowledge and experiences and been a part of a bunch of public education and stuff. So it's been a really good success. One of the other big highlights from 22 for us was the grand opening that we did of the fire hall. We've seen close to 700 people from the community come out to the open house, check out the station, and be part of our open house there for the new station. We are hoping that this year we're going to do another open house. It won't be a grand opening, but it will be an open house for Emergency Preparedness Week. Again, hoping to get more people back into the station. And then kind of our highlights for our operational responses for last year, we continue to see our calls rise. So we were up another 30 calls roughly over last year. It's kind of a mix of what we're seeing out there. On the report, 22 kind of breaks it down, but basically we did 49 fire events. So that would be car fires, building fires, grass fires, kind of anything fire related. And then 56 vehicle accidents, 113 alarm calls. So those are smoke detector activations or commercial alarm bells, things like that. 18 gas leaks, 628 medicals. So those include medical first responses and medical co-responses. So times when ambulance aren't in town and they're anything greater than 10 minutes or less, then our department gets paged to respond first. And anytime that there's a Delta level or Echo level response within our community, we also get dispatched to those to respond with EMS to provide assistance. And then we kind of categorize about 80 of them as miscellaneous calls. So those could be public assist, people locked in or out of vehicles, child's locked in vehicles, things like that. Our call percentage, 15% of our calls occur in Foothills County, with the remaining 85% occurring within the town of High River. And the other chart that we have in there speaks to our general pages. And that what those are is events where we need to bring additional staff than just the 4 people that are on duty right at present. So that will bring another truck or second or third truck, whatever that may be. So last year we had 138 general pages where we actually had to call off-duty staff in to come and assist. Our calls are split quite relatively evenly between the northwest and the southeast. So 40% of our calls southeast, 30% of our calls in the northwest. And then the remainder of the northeast and southwest make up the rest of our call volume. We've got our response times kind of down into the different quadrants as well. Into our northwest, we're seeing really close to 10 minutes. And again, that's taken on average. So that could be the very tip of the northwest. It doesn't necessarily take our furthest point, but we're seeing just about 10 minutes out to the northwest is our average response time. And that time is from the time that 911 is called to the time that our fire truck arrives on scene. That's what makes up that response time. So it's not just driving time. That's the time from the dispatch coming in to the time the guys get on the truck, get driving, and then actually air brakes arriving on scene. So our average response time in the southeast is right around 7.5 minutes. And again, that's kind of really depending upon, it's the whole entire southeast, so it's not taking the longest or the shortest. So there's times where we're right across the street from the fire hall and we have a 30-second response time type thing. So. And then kind of some big highlights for us last year. We did a bunch of smoke alarm inspections and carbon monoxide detector inspections. We have installed a bunch of them for individuals who aren't able to, so we'll go and assist them with putting those in. We responded to 944 calls, which is an average of 2.5 calls per day is kind of seems to be our average. Our dollars saved, so on the back page, when we look at dollars saved versus dollars lost, that's a really good one that we look at when regard to dollar loss. Our dollars lost was $785,000, and our dollars saved was just over $10 million. So when you look at a good example is at Emerson Lane Mall, right? The loss on that fire was about $50,000, but the dollars saved there is insurmountable, right? When you think about the doctor's office or dentist office that's in there and everything. So we did 7 in-depth fire investigations. So that's where myself, Trevor, or Steve would actually go there and actually do the full-on investigation that we're required to do. We issued some burn permits. That's kind of a new one for us since the annexation of the lands to the north of town on 112th Street and then the stuff south by Redtail. With that now being in town, they were always in the county before, and we're issuing burn permits. We've now changed our fire bylaw back in 2019 to allow for those to be issued, and we have a system in place to be able to issue those burn permits for those individuals. So that's kind of the highlights of the fire department annual report. Some of the other challenges that we've seen throughout the year for fire was, and we haven't put it into the report, but has been staffing issues with illness, with injuries, with all sort, you name it. We've had all kinds of interesting situations this year. Illness being a big one. Not so much COVID, but definitely other flus and stuff like that as people are coming back into the workplace. Kids are back in school. So, which put a bit of a strain on our department for sure from a staffing perspective. We have seen a number of our staff, our casual staff, move on to larger departments. City of Calgary recently took, and I'm going to look to Trevor, 4 of our casual staff to the City of Calgary, and we're constantly seeing them go for full-time employment. So that's been a bit of a challenge for us too. Some of them do stick on. The challenge comes though, some of those casuals were working 8 shifts a month, which was awesome. And now they're working with the City of Calgary, they're down to 2 shifts a month, right? So, where you had lots of coverage because these people were around, and now they've moved on to these larger centers. So we're working on a strategy right now to try and figure out how best to tackle that and putting together a bit of a business case, if you would, that can come forth to you guys to have a look at, to look at some options for us. It's certainly a challenge, trying to provide that 4-person staffing 24 hours a day creates some challenges when, with the mixed bag of individuals that we have. And, we've seen a lot of challenges last year too, when a lot of workplaces weren't giving holidays or people weren't taking vacation. And then all of a sudden, everybody's got all this built up vacation time and people want to go away, right? So from the casual staff side, even from our full-time staff, that was a real struggle to try and balance those off and make sure people got their time away as well. So yeah, so that was some of our challenges that we had last year, kind of on the staffing side of things. And again, with being as busy as we were. I'll move into the protective services report. So again, as of right now, we are fully staffed with 3 officers. So 1 officer currently is in CPOIP training, which is his Community Peace Officer Level 1 training. We expect to see him out here in the next April, Steve? End of May, he'll be back out, fully trained up, ready to go. The other one should have his appointment here relatively soon, so we'll have 2 of our peace officers on the ground and operating right away. So last year for capital projects was a fairly big one for protective services. So we did have to outfit our vehicles, which, as you probably all are well aware, very difficult time to try and purchase vehicles. Bonnyville ended up having 2 vehicles that they were selling with relatively low kilometers on them. They had 120,000 kilometers on them, but they were fully kitted up with all the lighting package, radar, everything that we needed. And we were able to buy both vehicles for $40,000. So the beauty part of that is the equipment that was put on these vehicles is really high-end equipment, and which was going to allow us to transfer that equipment over to another vehicle. Once those 2 vehicles are ready to be retired, the emergency equipment will not need to be replaced, which is about a $30,000 hit. So the next time we come to purchase it will be just for the vehicle alone and very minor upgrades to any of the lighting and stuff, like it may be a controller as opposed to a full kit. So. And then we got our 2021 Ford Escape that was purchased as well. Some of the other pieces that we purchased were our bikes for doing bike patrols. And then our radios and vests and all the other accoutrements that go along with it. Last year, Solicitor General's office, which now governs our peace officer program, mandated that all officers wear bulletproof vests, or the vests. So we don't have a choice whether we wear them or we don't wear them. So that was one of the pieces that we had to purchase last year for the officers. And then the other one that we've put in here is the long-awaited RCMP station renovation project has been closed off. We were able to get all the flooring done, walls fixed up, the kitchen so that they could actually have a functioning kitchen in there, and a bunch of other repairs to the building that was on the books for a few years. So that project is now closed and off the books now. Highlights of last year for protective services was a really big year for us. We weren't sure what we were going to get ourselves into. We were kind of going off of past stats, thinking we were going to do 300 or 400 complaints a year, and that was going to be it. Last year we finished off with nearly 1,200 complaints and proactive files. So fairly good year for us anyways. We worked a lot with FCSS last year and regarding some homeless individuals that we had in the community, trying to find supports for them and make sure they were taken care of. Last year we actually picked up 10 dogs, which I don't know that we've done that in a very long time. So, and sent them out to Heaven Can Wait, so which was good. We issued 191 courtesy tags and 117 warning notices. So those were basically just those warning tags, kind of the education piece of what council was really focusing on in our program, was providing that education and getting out there and talking to people. And we issued 64 tickets last year for a total of $15,890. So again, our focus was big on that education. And then if obviously people weren't following what we're kind of educating them on, then we would move to the ticket level. So we focused heavily on unsightly properties. That was a big one, which ties into a lot of the concerns that we had from past, couches sitting around, things like that. So last year we focused heavy on those. We've again began already this year focusing on unsightlies and trying to work with those people early on. So it gives us some time to try and get those cleaned up by end of summer. So and we've seen really good compliance with it. We participated in multiple community events. Our big one was focused on those community relations and getting out there and just kind of being visible in the community. And we're going to continue that for 23. Basically, we averaged about 1.9 complaints per day. So that doesn't include any of the proactive files where the officers were out there finding the unsightlies or any of those sorts of things. So, so in years past, we were hovering anywhere between 200 and right around 500 complaints from back in from 2018. And like I said, last year for complaints, we were 723 complaints. So I think partly that is to do with the avenues that individuals have as our community to call things into us. So report a concern, our 24-hour dispatch line, which was pretty instrumental in getting that set up. So those pieces, those ability to connect with us has proven very, very good for us. A lot of our complaints, when you look at the one chart, is southeast. And then the next kind of piece, it's split between the northwest and southeast. That's where most of our complaints are kind of coming from. Our officer generated complaints are, again, kind of all over the place. Really, it's just kind of wherever we're starting to see those. But they made up a fair bit of our foot patrols and things like that. So this year we're hopefully working with RCMP. I think I heard one of the counselors saying that they seen the RCMP out doing a foot patrol the other day. Yeah. So that's a big initiative this year for the RCMP. And we're actually going to be part of that as well. So teaming up with the RCMP and doing those foot patrols, teaming up the RCMP to get out there and be on the bikes and stuff like that, and do some more of the school zones and things like that, or high areas of where we know have traffic issues, is doing that in conjunction with the RCMP and trying to be out there and be visible and get out in the streets. So, and then looking to 2023, we're going to continue to look at our traffic and intersection safety, red lights, stop signs, speeding, that sort of stuff. That's kind of a big focus for us this year. School zones, again, is another piece of it. And then the education at schools, monitor for unsightly properties, still keep that under our radar. Support FCSS in addressing the homelessness issues. So again, Shelley and her team, we tend to find these individuals through different complaints, and maybe they haven't been connected to Shelley. So it's helping to try and bridge those people to some supports that they can utilize to help get themselves sorted out or find a place to go wherever that may be. The other one that we wanted to focus on this year is alley egress and vegetation impeding in the alleyways. There's a lot of our alleys in the southwest where garbage trucks and some of our town equipment have troubles getting down, let alone fire trucks and things. So starting to look at those is how do we tackle those, and how do we make sure that egress and access into those alleyways is still good. And then increase public interactions, and then we're trying to build a strategy for increased happy trail patrols, which I think will be done through partnership with the RCMP. So that's kind of our highlight of our 2022 for protective services in the fire department. So I look forward to any questions or comments.
Thanks, Cody. Councillor Kinghorn.
Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass. And I was really happy to see when you talked about us buying the vest for our officers in light of what happened in Edmonton last week. And our thoughts and prayers are with the families and EPS up there. It was a sad day in Edmonton, and I'm really happy to see that we're taking steps to protect our members here as best we can. I do have a couple questions. One is with respect to the 10 minutes to the northwest response time. Is there sort of an approved public number or response time that needs to be adhered to by the fire department?
Yeah, absolutely. So the the building code kind of regulates at 10 minutes or less 90% of the time. Once we get over that 10-minute threshold, there's other additional requirements on developers or builders that they have to do to open up spacing between houses. There's other construction methods that have to be done if we can't meet that 10-minute or less piece. So it definitely adds some additional costs to those pieces if we can't meet that 10 minutes or less. And it's not so much a fire department saying that, it's building code that comes down to that. And that's due to all the high intensity residential structure fires that have occurred. So it's the new standard, the HERF standard is what they put in. And I want to say that's been probably 8 or 9 years now, maybe even longer, that HERF's been actually put in for. And it's because everything's being so tight. With vinyl siding and stuff, it's not so much the vinyl siding that burns, but as soon as the vinyl siding melts away, we get the off-gassing of all the combustible chipboard that's underneath, and that's what typically ends up causing our problems, right? You look at that house fire in Montrose that we had here not that long ago. Our guys were on scene within 4.5 minutes from the time of call, and the time of call, we literally got a picture of it, and the fire was no bigger than this desk inside that house. Now, it was under construction, granted, and by the time our guys got there, the fire was through the roof. It was taking the siding off of the one next to it, and it was starting to melt the siding off the back of the homes behind it. And that was 4.5 minutes, right? So when we start talking about time and stuff like that, I mean, had there been a house directly beside it, we're fortunate there was a lot empty on either side of it where there was no homes. We probably would have had 3 or 4 houses.
But we are meeting the provincial guidelines.
Right now, we currently
today.
are. As we continue to grow further north, that's going to be something we're going to have to keep in mind.
Because I do recall we did have a small station in the northwest at one point in time. We had a house or something over there. Is that correct?
Yeah, we had a firehouse over on Highland Green Drive back, and then want to say 14 that was sold, I think, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure what happened there, but it was kind of before my time that house was sold. So, it certainly is a concern for us in making sure that we can get out to that northwest side in a timely fashion. But it does create, other challenges for us from operational side. I mean, operational costs and things like that we have to look at. So it's not just putting a fire station out there and parking a truck. It's how do we staff it? How do, all of those other things that come along with it, right?
So my second question, Cody, was the Heaven Can Wait. So when we pick up animals here in this community, we take them out to Kim's place out there. Is that an annually negotiated contract, or what's the arrangement with Kim? If you could enlighten me a bit, please.
Yeah, I'm fairly new to that. There's a contract, if you would. She charges us an annual fee basically to take animals out there, and so those are 10 that we took out there. She did end up taking a bunch more in that weren't brought by us. So community groups or somebody driving around town sees a dog, they'll run them out there, and then Kim actually went out and picked dogs up for us if we were tied up too. So there is a contract, if you would, or a fee for service, I guess, that we pay annually for Heaven Can Wait.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Nychuk?
Thanks, Mayor Snodgrass. Thanks for the report, Chief. Just all good stuff. I have one question pertaining to ambulance service, because I sit on the Foothills Regional Emergency Services Commission as well, and that 911 service is important to the region. For High River, when you guys attend a call, for lack thereof of an ambulance, is that infrequent or frequent, or do you have kind of a number that might have been through 2022? I see from 21 to 22 there was an increase in medical calls of like 70, but that doesn't give me an indication of what that meant from that ambulance service side of things.
Right. Yeah, so I can actually provide you guys with the finite numbers, because we do track them, whether it was a co-response, so meaning it was a high-level call, so somebody's not breathing, versus a call where the ambulance wasn't there. So we can definitely pull those numbers for you guys, and I can get those over to you. But I would say it's probably 25 to 30% of our call volume are first responses where there is no EMS in town, and we're going there as a first responder. And sometimes, we get very fortunate. I can think of an example about 6 months ago where we had a female that was in active labor, head was showing, and EMS says your EMS unit is 67 minutes away. So, of course, the crew was like, oh boy, here we go. And thankfully, we have the High River Hospital, which does see a lot of EMS transports into High River Hospital. So a crew had just dropped off a patient and was able to clear up, and they were only about 6 minutes behind our crew. Had that ambulance have not transported to the High River Hospital, it may have been a different story. So, I think we don't, and I'm not going to say we don't have a problem here. I think our problem is substantially less than places like Okotoks that do not have a hospital, right? We constantly have an influx of ambulances coming in from other communities, dropping off patients, and that does provide us, I think, a bit of a cushion because of the hospital being here, where the ambulance may not be available immediately when the call comes in, but that ambulance is able to be cleared up and sent away from that point after. So yeah, I can certainly get you those numbers and get you some stats around that for sure.
Thanks, Chief.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
No further questions, Cody. My question was answered through Councillor Kinghorn, so good. Thanks
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Strategic priorities chart, work program. Chris?
Thanks, Mayor Snodgrass. So, as Council recalls, last week we had our update meeting on the 20th, and we reviewed Council's strategic priorities. It's great to report again that we continue to see movement on Council's top 5, and they continue to see progression to change in dates or change in milestones as well. The whole purpose of setting the action-based priorities is to make sure there's a level of accountability and that things are being accomplished and being dealt with effectively and efficiently as possible, and that there is progress. So Council's current top 5 priorities remain as follows. The town plan still remains on the list, as we did move on from our contractor, and we are now doing it in-house with completing the draft policies and getting that to council and to our task force in the next month. Aquatic expansion remains on the list, and it has moved on quite quickly from where it started in the fall. to the point that we're into the detailed design process now, with the hopes of the detailed design being presented to council and the task force in October, with the hopes that we'll be tendering later in the winter or early winter from that perspective. We also have development management review. We've solicited a third-party independent consultant to take a look at our development management process. He's underway right now. We're probably about 30% through that process right now, expecting the final report by middle part of June at the latest, with action plan coming out and being presented to council sometime in early September. We're also working on the public works shop in a new location for that, and we've gone through a public exercise or an exercise with our staff about their needs, and we're just in the process of contacting realtors to see what's available from that perspective. And then our event program, we have hired a new person for that position. Council has met Heather at one of our last council meetings. We are in the process right now of updating our special event process to try and streamline it, trying to address some of the concerns that we heard from special event individuals about how clunky the process was. And we hope to have that done by April, and then we'll be moving on to probably developing an action plan for the latter half of the year. So that's council's top 5, and there's certainly other priorities on that list, including the staff ones that are too numerous to go into in detail, but that's the rationale for the recommendation before council today.
Thanks, Chris. Any questions from council? Obviously, there's a ton of stuff on that sheet that we're dealing with, but at any point in time, you gotta narrow it down into the high priority items, so. No questions from council. I'll ask for a motion from Councillor Walsh that council adopt the updated top 5 strategic priorities as follows: the town plan, aquatic facility expansion, development management, event program, and the public works shop, and that council adopt the updated operational strategies as outlined in the strategic priorities chart, and further that council adopt the updated work program as presented.
You have my motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. All in favor? Carried. Thanks, Chris. Sarah, decision extension request for Highwood Ranch, Phase 1.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. The purpose of the report before you is for Council to consider an extension to Highwood Ranch Phase 1. That's a subdivision application. It's an application that was accepted as complete by staff on August 18th, 2020. And it was processed accordingly. It consists of 35 medium density residential lots and 8 low density residential lots, as well as a public utility lot. On November 1st, 2021, the application was approved subject to several conditions as part of the transmittal of decision. And as always, conditions in the transmittal of decision must be completed within 1 year of that date. Those conditions include certain important engineering submissions and landscaping submissions, as well as the developer needs to enter into a development agreement to provide us with a letter of credit and pay their offsite levies. The applicant today is requesting a 3-year extension, while administration is only recommending a 1-year extension from today's date. The applicant did provide a letter of rationale, which included the following 2 key points. They explained that this project has not yet been initiated for construction, as in their words, we have been experiencing supply chain issues, cost increases, and labor demand shortages that have increased prices to the point where the project becomes a challenge and the cost of housing to the end user becomes too high. Lately, we have found that the prices have adjusted down somewhat, but the labor is not there. They provided the second point. They said, we are also concerned about the negative impact the site experiences from the feedlot to the west. And we are also watching to determine if proposed mitigation efforts on that site will have any identifiable impact on the overall use and enjoyment of the property in the future. Administration is recommending limiting the extension to just 1 year from today's date. Conditions of a transmittal of decision are relatively minor in nature, entering into agreements, providing letters of credit, providing certain amounts of money to the municipality, as opposed to conditions that are expected to take a significant amount of time. Well, administration does understand where the applicant is coming from, that they are wishing to pause progress until costs stabilize, until it's more clear if what is going to happen with the feedlot to the west. Administration would like to advise council that in some cases it can be against the municipality's best interest to grant extensions that are relatively lengthy in nature as opposed to just 1 year, because when we look at extensions, the municipality is not able to update the approval to comply with current policies and bylaws. So those approvals do become outdated relatively quickly. Administration does believe that a 1 year extension from today's date is reasonable. However, administration does not believe that a 3-year extension would be in the municipality's best interest, because the approval is tied to policies such as the off-site levy bylaw and the current town plan, as opposed to the town plan that administration is currently updating. Should council accept the 1 year extension, meaning up until March 27th, 2024, and should the deadline lapse, the applicant would be able to apply for the extension again. If council were not supportive of that extension, the approval would lapse, and the subdivision application would be needed to be applied for again, and all new policies would be applied at the time of the proposal, and that would be, if there is a new offsite levies bylaw, that would be applied. If there are any changes to the engineering specifications, those would be applied. And of course, the new town plan would be applied. That concludes my report. Are there any questions from council?
Councillor Nychuk. Thanks, Sarah.
Thanks, Sarah. Appreciate the report. Into these other bylaws that are in place that you're suggesting we have a challenge with accepting the application for 3 years, and you're suggesting 1 year. Where's the line in the sand there with the town plan or any other bylaws that are there that are putting you at this 1 year? Because Mr. Allen is sitting here, and I'm sure he's asking for 3 years for a purpose. He's been in the business for quite a while, and so I'm assuming that is factoring into all the conditions that he's talking about in the extension of this application. So I want to understand the challenge of if he's asking for 3 and we're coming back with 1. I don't know. I don't want to get into a Mexican debate on, oh, let's meet at 2 years or a year and a half, or that's not it. I want to understand the challenges of why we can't do that. What holds us back from approving a 3-year?
As I was preparing for this report, I was reading some reports from various legal firms helping municipalities to really understand the purpose of this 1 year time period, which is found in the subdivision regulations in the Municipal Government Act. Further clarity was added to the regulations in 2021 with the Red Tape Reduction Act, but the province did decide to leave it as 1 year and then allow municipalities to extend it if necessary. And from the reports that I was reading, it was the intention of the government to really, in most 9 times out of 10 cases, the government would want the developers to be able to get their subdivision applications endorsed within 1 year after approval, because in their minds, they're saying that it's really not in the municipality's best interest to have these approvals that are going 1, 2, 3, maybe even 4 or 5 years into the future, because municipal policies and bylaws do change. So, and I think in the regulations for the subdivision regulations in the MGA, it's generally understood that the conditions in the transmittal of decision should be relatively simple and straightforward for the developer to complete. It really is just entering into agreements and paying the money. It really shouldn't be much more kind of active work beyond that. So I think it's important to remember that it's the intention of the MGA that the developer should be very close to having all of the work for the subdivision fully complete by the time the transmittal of decision is rendered by the municipality. It's not the intention of this process to have these approvals go much further within 1 year into the future. Sometimes things do happen, so that's why the MGA allows for minor extensions. And I do believe that 1 year would be reasonable. However, just based on the fact that I suspect that we might have a new offsite levies bylaw, and we will certainly have a new town plan, administration is hesitant to go much beyond an additional 1 year.
May I continue, Mayor Snodgrass? So we deem it as reasonable, meaning the administration. And there was something in there from the MGA about in the best interests, which I'm not quite sure whose interests we're talking about. But we've got a local developer that has asked for something for an extension, and I'm assuming there's some justification behind that. So have we had the conversation then? Is that something that has happened, that we've approached the reasonability from the developer as well? What we deem as reasonable is one thing. What that developer, landholder, and resident of a High River might think is reasonable is something else. So I just want to make sure that we've had some dialogue so that Scott doesn't have to be here next year doing the same thing. Because that's not red tape reduction, and to me that's just not working very well together. No disrespect to what you guys are doing, but I'm just hoping that if he's asking for an extension of a certain period of time, that we're not going to be back here again next year, taking administration's time, taking council's time, and taking Mr. Allen's time to do this again.
Thanks, Michael. Councillor Jones?
Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass. Is this the first extension they've requested?
It is the first extension from the 2020 application. However, there was an application in 2018 and another application in 2019, and we are using the same fees that we collected in 2018 for the current application.
Are there current bylaws and policies you're concerned about at this moment, or just sort of what's coming up?
I'm specifically concerned about having this current approval still be on the books in the next couple of years and not comply with the town, potentially not being in compliance with the town plan and potentially having a new offsite levies bylaw, and yet we would still be tied to the 2021 offsite levies bylaw.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Walsh?
Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass. Questioning the timeline, the recommended timeline being 1 year, understandably. However, from when those guidelines were prepared to where we are now, it's a very real thing that we have some serious chain supply issues, right? So do you see a happy medium in that? If the 3 years is not reasonable, there is an opportunity for us to use our own discretion.
Yes, there is an opportunity for us to use our discretion. I think we should also keep in mind that this 1 year is just for endorsement, and then the applicant does have an additional year to register the application at land titles. So it really is 2 years, 1 year for endorsement, and then they have one further year, depending on their timelines, to get it registered at land titles.
Thank you, Sarah. I look forward to hearing more from the developer, because I'm sure he has lots of interesting points there.
My thoughts, I'm fully on side with the 3 year. Reason being is that, I get where you're at, Sarah, 100%. If there might be changes to offsite levies, it might affect or not fit the town plan, but our offsite levies currently is pretty strong. It's actually very, very strong. We're one of, I don't know, has it been mandated by the Alberta government now that every municipality in Alberta has to comply with the new offsite levies rules as to what's included and everything else? I know before, when we put it into play, we were one of the only ones that was strengthening our offsite levies that far, right? So our offsite levies are very strong. Our land use bylaw is new and very, very strong. Scotty's development plan is high quality, fits with our current land use bylaw, and I see nothing being involved in the creation of our new town plan. I see absolutely nothing in that town plan that would affect what this development might look like. I see not. Halid, help me out if I'm missing something, but I really don't. I don't see anything that the town plan is not a bylaw that says, it's a guide. It's not a bylaw, but so. I get your 1 year recommendation, but I'm with Councillor Nychuk as well that, Scott and Christie are here. I know what the market looks like that he's dealing with. This is a multi-million-dollar development when he pulls the trigger on it. It's got to be right for him. And do I think that's going to happen within the next 3 years? I don't know. Things are, on a number of areas, things are a little bit goofy right now, but I guess they always are, right? It's whether you feel like it's right at the right time, and that's Scotty's decision. So I just don't know, 1 year, 2 more years, I don't see that there's going to be this miraculous amount of change that's going to come to us that will affect the current development.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. I think one of the challenges that we face, and the reason why we have come up with 1 year extension, is our experience with other extensions in our community and how we have really suffered a lot, and it became very complicated when we grant extension after extensions. And so we wanted to really move forward towards a different approach on trying to really work with developers when they're ready to hit the ground and move forward. We can work with them if they're not ready, it's just not helpful for them or for the town. And so that's why extension after extension is just complicate the whole process, and it makes it difficult on them and on us. The town plan itself, as an overall policy document, it does come up with some changes, because this is now, it is based on an area structure plan and an old town plan that everything was different when it comes to density, when it comes to requirement of different type of housings and whatnot. So the new town plan could definitely come with some additional requirements how the overall mix of housing should look like, and it could be shall, not should. And so we don't know, but that could have implications on any other developments within our community, including existing area structure plan that haven't been built out yet. So there should be some challenges, but again, we're just trying to really remind the developers to make sure that they are really taking this very serious, because if 2 or 3 years doesn't work, then we'll come back again for another extension, which again is going to put us in the same situation. And so it's better for them and us that when they're ready to move forward, we can always work with them. That's why we recommend that it's 1 year. And even the MGA actually requires, as Sarah mentioned, the endorsement is normally for 1 year, and the registration is for 1 year. So council have the authority to grant multiple extensions for 1 year, after 1 year, after 1 year, because they have only 1 year for endorsement. They don't have 3 years to endorse. They have only 1 year to complete the endorsement. If that 1 year expires, they will have to get another extension from council. So council cannot give them 3 years extension for endorsement, because that's against the MGA.
Right. That's not what's being asked today, correct?
So what they're asking, 3 years for the endorsement, and that is not allowed by the MGA. The MGA allows them 1 year for extensions to complete the endorsement process. If they fail to complete the endorsement process, they have to come and get another extension from council for another year.
So are you telling me that it would be illegal for us to grant a 3-year extension?
That's right. My understanding, and I can read it right now. Section 657.6, council may grant one or more extensions of A, the 1 year period referred to in subsection A, which is the endorsement period, and B, the 1 year period referred to in subsection 5, which is the registration. So council doesn't have the authority to allow them to have 3 years extension, because the registration only would be within 1 year. Even if you give them 3 years extension right now, that's okay, but they will have to come back and get another extension next year if they fail to endorse their papers. Which, like the 3 years, doesn't help them in any way, shape, or form, because they will have to come back to council after 1 year.
Yeah, it's goofy.
So can you read that first part from the MGA again?
Okay. So the MGA allows an applicant.
I don't want you to paraphrase it. I want you to read it again, please.
Okay. So the council may grant one or more extensions of A, the 1 year period.
Needed to hear right there.
Yes.
We can grant one or more. So right now, today, we could grant 3 1-year extensions with a $250 application. And we come up with the same result. Is that not? No, I don't want to have to pull a lawyer in to tell me what that sentence means, but that's what it means to me.
You just made it even more confusing for me. That's a whole other.
For me, this is just if Scott, sorry if I can be that informal, if he's here telling us he needs that for his business, for this development, there's a reason behind it. And I mean, I could ask him to explain it, but I trust what the guy is saying because he's been doing it forever. That'd be up to Mr. Mayor.
What's that? Sure, come on up. Christie's got it. Yeah, no, I need both sides when I'm struggling.
Great, thanks, Your Worship. Your Worship and members and council. My name is Christy Bunder. I'm a planning consultant. I've been active in the town for 30 years, actually. It's crazy. We are making this request actually based on the conditions. And what happened, Ms. Peck and I worked pretty hard in 2019 on bringing a lot of things to fruition, including the development agreement, the cost sharing agreement. She has a plan of survey. We have given a preliminary cost estimate. However, with the pandemic, that changed everything. And as council may recall, we had talked a little about a surety or a bond instead of a letter of credit. And the direction from council was, no, you'll be providing a letter of credit. And that's fine, but when you are providing letters of credit, you have to have the equivalent cash value on hand at the bank to post that LOC. So essentially, you're paying twice as a developer. You're paying your contractors to do the work on the ground, and the bank is holding that contractor's value in cash, and the town is holding the letter of credit. So if your costs escalate, your letter of credit goes higher and higher and higher. And it goes to the point where you actually can't post it any longer because it's obscenely high. And that's where we are. We are in a position where a lot of the hard costs are extremely high to the point of stupidity. And it would be a letter of credit that would be unmanageable, and it would be a home price to the buyer at the end of the day that would be significantly higher than what's here in the town and offered for sale. So we're trying to ride a bit of a wave, trying to find beneficial pricing. We're not saying anything else. It's a matter of just trying to get a cost benefit analysis that works. And if we have to pay what we are supposed to pay right now, these lots will be unaffordable and unsaleable. And that's not what's good for this developer or what's good for the town. Also in the intervening time frame, with the stroke of a pen, the NRCB changed everything. And, we had a good 10 years, and when we adopted the Spitz Area Crossing Area Structure Plan in 2013, we weren't faced with as big an issue with regard to the environmental considerations of odor as we are now. And I think that Mr. Allen would like to see if there's any mitigation that occurs, there's any change, any issues that are arising from that operation that mitigate its operations in total. I think that's been a frustration for us because it's really changed things. I actually went back to the area structure plan to see if there was anything in there about restrictive covenants or notices with regard to odor, because we had talked about that, and there's nothing. So it's concerning enough that we just need a little more time to pass on both of these counts in order to make an informed decision. I don't necessarily agree that a 3-year extension is illegal. I think you can make multiple extensions. It's a registration issue. And yes, these are kind of softball conditions, but they do require payment of the offsite levies prior to registration and posting the letter of credit. And that's the issue, as easily as I can explain it. Is that fair, Scott?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just one more thing, Chris. Sarah, just so you understand, it takes us a year to build it. So there goes a year. You gave me till next year this time. Basically, it's spring. We can't move dirt in the springtime. Can't do nothing in the springtime, so we're definitely coming back.
Yeah. If it's a year.
We're not avoiding it.
Yeah, if it's a year, we'll be back. And, the positive thing is that Lift Station was constructed in 2022. So now we can watch it and see how it was working and what your data analysis is. And we'll redo the engineering on that, but it's a good thing that it's there. And all of these are positive improvements, but at the same time, like Fortis, for example, is taking a year to come. Like, we've got an engineered electrification plan. They're telling us that we put our money down and in a year they might be out there to construct something. It's not good. for us, and every other developer is facing that as well. And particularly electrification has been a real challenge. So a time extension request that we've made is the one that works for us, and we would hope that the town would make it work for them too, and that's all we're asking.
Thanks, Christy. Thanks, Scotty.
In principle, we're not really against working with the developer and try to help them move, forward. That's always our intention. It's just we're trying to make sure that we really avoid the complications that we've seen with other developments because of extensions, multiple extensions, and that's really the issue that we see. And so, I mean, like Sarah mentioned earlier, when you grant them 1 year extension, that automatically they get 2 years, because 1 year only for endorsement, that doesn't mean construction, and then they have another year to register, and then they can start construction. So it's really, they have it by default that they have 2 years. And so there's no any issues there from our perspectives, but we just see 3 years is just too much of time. But council has that opportunity as well.
And I get that, Khalid, and yes, we have seen issues with extensions with another development, but they're not insurmountable issues that we can't work through at the time like we did with those as well. So I'm balancing what our risk is with this with where they're at. I completely understand what these LOCs and the cost of these developments is batshit crazy. The amount of money that it takes to get these developments going. Everybody scratches their head wondering why their lot costs so much money. Well, like, it's rank how much money needs to be invested in these things. So so my question for what I need to move forward is how can I legally give them 3 years? How can we do that? Is it like what Michael is saying, that we're, granting, today we're going to grant 3 one-year extensions? Is that?
Well, that's, I think, the explanation. I'm not really 100% sure to say whether that is really against the MGA or not, but the MGA does allow council to grant multiple of 1 year extensions. So whether that 1 year extension every year they have to come back or at once, I'm not 100% sure. But I know for sure once they have 1 year extensions, whether you give them 3 or not, after 1 year they have to really get another approval from council. I'm sure that Chris may have some more insights.
Okay, well, just to move this thing along.
I think my recommendation, Mr. Mayor, if I may,
Yeah.
it would be give them 1 year extension for endorsement and 1 year extension for registration. So they have 2 years. That is based on the MGA. It's 100% correct. And then if they need another 3rd year, then they could come back and get another 2 years, 1 year for endorsement and another year for registration. If that worked for them.
Did you hear that, Christy? Does it?
Thank you. I think in order to have an endorsement, we still need a valid registration. And so my worry would be that if we get 1 year endorsement condition and then another year for registration, we're going to be back here March 27th, 2024 for another year extension, because you can't endorse something that's expired on the registration side. And, in also, we'd have to still post those LOCs to make the conditions registerable and endorsable. So it's not going to happen in a year. Then in 2024, 2025, I'll be in a better position to have the engineering done and the cost estimates prepared to a more, I guess, reasonable expectation than they are right now. But that doesn't help at all.
I just don't
Yeah, the other option, I
get the
think,
MGA's.
yeah, the other option, I think, you could, as council, approve them the 3-year extension, provided that we check with our legal advisor that and it is aligned with your approval.
Okay, but bang on, we're on the same, exact same page, because that's what I just wrote down.
Yep.
Let's do the motion with the 3-year extension. You follow up with legal to make sure it's good. If it's not, then we will rewind it and figure it out. Okay? Because that, not shocking that the MGA wording is a little hard to decipher. Councillor Nychuk?
Thanks, Mayor Snodgrass. Just to take it one step further from what the mayor said, when you do contact legal, not only ask them if that's okay, if it's not okay, how do we get to that point legally? So we can come back with the recommendation so we get to where we want to be. Thank you guys for all your effort. This is absolutely no question of what you guys are doing in your department. It's us all working together so that both parties can come to a place where this is going to be successful at some point in the future. So.
And
Although
we-
I wanted to buy a house right there, Scott, so I guess I'm going to have to wait, right?
Okay, I'll ask for a motion from Councillor Nychuk that council grant an extension until March 27th, 2026 for the applicant to fulfill the prior to endorsement conditions of subdivision applications 23.01.20.
Mr. Mayor, you have my motion.
Thank you. All in favor? Carried. Thanks very much, Khalid. Thanks, Sarah. You're doing your job to protect us. It's our job to screw it up. Community Facility License Agreement, Shepherd Family Park Society. Jody?
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Figured I'd switch it up, come sit over here for these couple presentations. First one is the Shepherd Family Park Society and their property insurance premiums. So to give you a little bit of a history here, this actually goes back a number of years. The town and the Shepherd Family Park Society have had an agreement in place for the occupation and operation of Shepherd Family Park for a number of years. And in 2022, we updated the agreement. And there was one section, section 12.3 specifically, that spoke to insurance, and the question came up as to why the society should be paying the property insurance premiums when the town actually owns the structures. After further discussion between administration, the Shepherd Family Park Society, and the appointed council representative, thank you, Councillor Walsh, it was decided that the best approach moving forward would be for the town to pay for the insurance premiums on the structures. Therefore, in order to streamline the process, we have a proposed amendment attached to your council agenda, fairly minor in nature. And what we are proposing is that we would go forward and have both parties initial that amendment. The piece that may have been confusing for council in the report was the mention of the Highwood Center. So with changing the invoicing of the property insurance premiums for Shepherd Family Park, that left one user group that would then be the only remaining group that was being invoiced back for the property insurance premiums, being the Highwood Center. Similar situation, we have had an agreement with the Highwood Memorial Center Society for a number of years. That agreement was actually updated in 2020, and they have a similar section in their agreement indicating that the town will invoice them for the property insurance premiums. If we would like to treat all of the user groups equally and make this change on all of the agreements, I just wanted to bring forward the Highwood Center as well for council consideration to make the similar amendment in their agreement. For council's information, the 2023 property insurance premiums are approximately $3,600 for Shepherd Family Park, and for Highwood Center, $23,000. Really, this would be offsetting as we do provide funding to the groups, and it would just be a shift in giving them money and invoicing them back for money. So it actually makes it a much more streamlined process. Does council have any questions?
Nope, thanks, Jody. This is a long time working through this stuff over the last number of years, and it only makes sense because all it is a weird money exchange paper trail that's unnecessary. So, no questions from council. I'll ask for a motion from our Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass. Before we proceed, I just want to clarify for the benefit of everybody that all of the other agreements that we have with our community partners would now be in alignment to the same degree?
Yes, that is correct. So those different groups include the Museum of the Highwood, the High River Library, George Lane Park, and the Lions that operate that campground facility for us. Who am I missing? That might be it.
Town-owned facilities that other groups operate and manage, right? So I'll ask for a motion from Councillor Smith. The council approve the amendment to the community facility license agreement with the Shepherd Family Park Society, specifically to section 12.3 to include the town shall maintain and pay for the insurance on the structures related to Shepherd Family Park, and further that council approve an amendment to the community facility license agreement with the Highwood Memorial Center Society, specifically section 14.3 to remove the town invoicing the Highwood Memorial Center Society on a quarterly basis for the property and boiler insurance premiums.
I will give you that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Smartphone use, Jody?
Thank you. So the town has actually had a personal smartphone use and reimbursement procedure since 2018. It was a procedure which was not presented to council as council sees policies and bylaws. However, since 2018, technology has advanced and there has been increased cyber activity, nefarious activity, which we are looking to improve our practices to make sure that any access to town's technology infrastructure is protected. And so we are looking to update the smartphone use to a smartphone use policy rather than a procedure. In order to meet the requirement, with an implementation that is coming up this week for multi-factor authentication, there will be staff that will be required to use their personal smartphone or cell phone to receive an authentication code that is required in addition to their password to access the town's technology infrastructure. Currently, this deadline is for March 31st, so we are bringing this policy to council in the hopes that we can clarify that this particular use does not qualify as business purposes. And that is spelled out in the policy, that there are some staff and council as well that do have cell phones that are provided for business purposes specifically. Does council have any questions regarding the policy?
See none, hear none. Ask for a motion from Councillor Kinghorn that council adopt the newly drafted smartphone use policy, POL 04-10800, dated March 27th, 2023, and that council direct administration to rescind personal smartphone use and reimbursement procedure, ITS PRO 100-00.
Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass. You have my motion.
Thank you. All in favor? Carried. Thanks, Jody. Community bursary scholarships confirmation. Kieran?
Good afternoon. I was just put this on the agenda to get confirmation, the same as last year. Follow the same procedure that we did last year, that we passed the resolution just to confirm the scholarships for the community bursary in the amount of $1,000 to both schools for one graduate, grade 12 graduate who is going to a post-secondary school. I just wanted to put the resolution on here so we can follow the same as last year and continue with the application process with the schools.
Perfect. Thanks, Kieran. Any questions? None. I'll ask for a motion from Councillor Jones that council direct administration to proceed with the community bursary scholarship for the Highwood High School and Notre Dame Collegiate grade 12 graduates.
I'll give you that motion, Mayor Snodgrass.
Thank you very much. All in favor? Carried. Thanks, Kieran. Booyah, booyah. Okay. Rimrock. Where do I start? Okay, so I'm going to address a number of things. The first one I'm going to address is the Facebook page regarding this issue. Seen a lot about what's been posted on there. I rarely go on Facebook, but a number of people have shown me what's been posted on there, and I'm no longer going to be answering emails or texts or Facebook Messenger requests from people, and because what's happening is they're piecing them together and writing incorrect stuff on that Facebook page. Is the first thing that's I'm not putting up with it. So so if somebody wants something addressed by council or by myself via email, because they're not on Facebook, they can directly send that. You can CC all the council, myself, everybody. You can CC on that. But send it to Town of High River Legislative Services. Then it'll get on the agenda, and then we'll deal with it here in a public forum with what's really going on. The second piece is, with that Facebook page, in my mind, it's being managed absolutely horribly, and it's an embarrassment as to what's going on. When you open up a Facebook page and allow anonymous comments to go on there, and nobody has to have a name or picture or anything, whatever, there's nothing there, and go after throttling anybody, myself or any member of this council, that's not okay. We're not putting up with it. But that's what's going on. And I asked the administrators to stop doing that, and they said no. They're supporting it, and they're encouraging it. So I'm out. So anybody on Facebook that has a question for me, you can post it directly to my mayor's Facebook page. I will answer it there. There's 4,400 people following that page. We can have the community discussion there. But because of the way that Facebook page is being managed, I won't have anything to do with it. So that's where we're at on that. That's issue number one. The other piece is the fact that, not just through Facebook, Messenger, blah, 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 people are asking me and posting, why is Craig so against the town's future? Why is Craig trying to destroy the town? Why won't Craig stand up for us? Anything I've put out there in the public is my opinion on the project. It means nothing. Chuck it in the garbage if you don't like it. It's just you're asking me a question, I'm putting it out there. If you don't like it, like I said, chuck it in the garbage. So, I gotta be careful here. I do feel, though, that there are pieces to this project that Michael and I have been working with Tidewater and Rimrock on, that has to do with the liquid digestate ponds. And that's one of our biggest concerns when we look at that project, is how it might affect High River. When you look at the biodigesters that have been shut down, most of them, if not all of them, are this open lagoon style system. For the last number of months, we've been pounding the table with Tidewater to enclose that liquid digestate. And that's where a number of these, I'm looking at the Bonnybrook one, I'm looking at the Lethbridge facility. The successful projects with this are fully contained projects. The number one issue for High River that we've got, and before the biodigester discussion came up, the number one issue is the current smell problem from the feedlot. The cause of the smell comes from manure. So the people that are going after whatever I've said, or people that are against the biodigester, are saying, well, get rid of the biodigester and force the feedlot to deal with the smell. Which, sorry, but it's very confusing to me, because the way to deal with the smell problem is to better manage the manure. So currently, and that comes from, and I got the report right here. If you look on, you can Google it. There's a North Dakota State University study that talks about, the whole study is done on large-scale feedlot operations and how to deal with smell. The number one conclusion out of that report is to better handle the manure handling practices. So the current state of where feedlots are at is that manure is piled up throughout the year in the pens because you cannot get it out. You have nowhere to put it. The only place you can put it is on cropland. And it has to go on the cropland either prior to seeding or post-harvest. You can't put it on with growing crops. So that way, and hard to deal with and get in and out of the fields in the dead of winter when it's minus 40, and you all know how this winter's gone. So the best mitigation practice that's out there is to handle the manure better and the frequent cleaning of pens. And this is where the thing is, if you think it's just, I don't know, but there's a lot of people that don't know me, so I take a grain of salt, but if you think I'm doing any of this as something to be against the town of High River, or I want the town to fail, or anything like that, it's absolutely ludicrous that I would be sitting here with that kind of mandate going on in my head. And that's the reason why I'm wanting the biodigester. Another post on that Facebook page saying, well, Snodgrass has shares in Tidewater and Rimrock feeders, and that's why he's doing it. I don't own shares in nothing. Lyle Reeves Funerals, that's every penny I got. And a whole bunch of the banks. That's it. Sorry, but it pisses me off when we go down this road sometimes with people wanting myself or counselors, we must agree with them. And if we're not, it's the tribal mentality that we have nowadays, is that you're either with us or you're against us. And if you're against us, we're going to destroy you. And that's what's going on. So go for it. Back to cow manure. The way the biodigester works is that the manure comes out of the pens and goes into an enclosed holding compound 365 days a year. It goes into the enclosed compound that says on Tidewaters. You can see the building that the manure goes into. It's then liquefied, the water from the Highwood River that everybody talks about, that comes into the facility. It's liquefied, it goes into the biodigester, the gas comes out of it. Two products come out the other end. One is the dry digestate, and the other one is the liquid digestate. The dry digestate is basically odorless, is what I'm telling. I don't know. We're trying to get down to the Lethbridge facility so I can get my hands on it. Literally, I want my hands on it. But it's the liquid digestate going out to the ponds that's a concern for me, into these open ponds. And I've asked Tidewater to enclose that liquid digestate, contain that liquid digestate, and I think that is the number one thing that we have got to get them to do. So I'm going to ask for a motion in a little bit here, directing council to, for us to send a letter to AEP, Tidewater, and Rimrock requesting this. There's been other concerns that have been brought up that I've asked Tidewater about. H2S, of course, everybody hears about that. Opens your eyes and ears as to where we're at. So I do have when I asked the question, they provided me a document that explains the amount of actual H2S that these biodigesters generate, and it is a bladder system. They are designed to handle 2,000 parts per million. Typical H2S levels within biodigesters are between 55 and 65 parts per million. I think H2S gets dangerous around 200 parts per million, right? Is where things can go south. Historical. Here, I'll read this one. To evaluate the risk to adjacent landowners, the team has modeled a dual membrane burst of a digester at the conservative design value of 200 ppm, and confirmed that the nearest landowner would be exposed to less than 10% of the allowable OH and S exposure limits. The allowable limit is 15 ppm. They're at 10%. So a level of 1.115 parts per million for a 15-minute duration. So where H2S, and I looked at it because there was a comment, John Blake made a comment a couple of weeks ago about H2S and the amount of people it's killed in Alberta. Well, I went back and looked. It's not very many at all. And the people that were killed by it were operators of the facilities, not biodigesters. We're talking sour gas facilities. The danger is to the operators. The biodigester, yes, it creates H2S. Our lift stations create H2S. Our wastewater treatment plant creates H2S. If the operators are not trained, they don't have an emergency plan, or they don't follow the emergency plan, they are in danger. Absolutely, 100%. It's not stuff to screw around with, but do I see anything in here that says H2S at this facility will endanger anybody in the town of High River? No. The answer is very clear. Where am I going next? I think we're there. So like I said, I think we can do a few things. Council can do whatever they want. I'm going to open it up for council comments here in just a second, but I'll address a couple of the pieces regarding the biodigester that are in our agenda under the council correspondence for information. So there is one from John Blake, and he is respectfully asking that a majority of council agree to actively apply for intervenor status with AEPA in opposition to the Tidewater project. So number one, council's more than welcome to say we are going to oppose. That's a council decision. If there's a motion, we'll deal with that. To apply for intervenor status, it's being said out there that there's a lawyer out there that says we can do intervenor status today. Nope, we can't. I want the name of the lawyer because he's wrong. We cannot do that. And I clarified it with AEP this morning that there's only 2 times that you can intervene on any project in front of Alberta Environment, and one is through the filing an SOC as a statement of concern, which, because we had no idea this project was going on, it was only circulated to the 2-kilometer radius. That date went by long before we actually even found out about this thing. The second time that you can apply for intervenor status is after, and only after, the application is approved and then it is appealed by one of the people that were deemed directly affected and their statement of concern was accepted. So they're the only ones, so they can, if they appeal, which I'm pretty sure that's going to happen, right? If the thing's approved, I'm pretty sure there's somebody out there with a statement of concern that's going to appeal it. So then we can ask for intervenor status. But still at that same time, I want to know, we're going to decide what grounds that we're asking for this intervenor status as. And AEP still has the decision to say, well, whether you are actually directly affected and whether they accept your intervenor status. Just because you hand them one doesn't mean they even take it. So there's a process there. But can we ask for intervenor status today? No, we can't. The other piece that John asks about is solicit for more operational oversight by NRCB on the many infractions by Rimrock and activate compliance enforcement. Well, you know, the many infractions by Rimrock, I don't know what he means by that there's actual, and I talked to NRCB, and there was a few years ago they spread manure on the wrong piece of property and they got their hands slapped for that, but I don't know of any actual infractions of their breaking the law out there. I haven't heard of any. So if they're there, then you're more than welcome to email us or let us know. But the other piece that he has in his letter to council right now I'll point it out to you, and you can read it in the agenda as to what he's proposing. This kind of stuff, I'll let you be the judge as to how much you think that does any good for anything or anybody in this town. There's another letter from B.J. Harrison that he is with Jeanette Hall. She's been very active with things, but you know, he's asking us to have Jeanette be part of our deliberations. You know, Jeanette is more than welcome to come in and have a delegation with council. You can, there's a process, you can email Jody and come in and sit as a delegation, but I want to be clear, like a lot of what Jeanette, when I read her stuff, you know, she's a long ways off the biodigester. Like going after Cargill and going after Big Ag and over on Earth, period. We're not doing that in here. We'll come in and talk about the biodigester, but I also need, you know, I want to make sure that we've got credible information coming to us too, and I don't want, we're not going to go chasing and running down rabbit holes that do not pertain to the town of High River. So I'll open it up for questions, comments, council, before I read this motion, if you have any, or else I'll just go right into the motion. Councillor Kinghorn?
Having put in problem here. Thanks, Mayor Snodgrass. I appreciate your comments today. And I want to go back a little bit on this issue. The biogester has been muddled up with rimrock and the odors coming out of rimrock. They're two completely separate issues in my mind. We had the smell for years. Since I've been around High River, we've had that smell. I've been in this area since 1990. And Craig is correct when he talks about where the odor comes from. It comes from the manure. And every spring they would go out there, dig up the manure and run around farmers' fields and spread it around, and we had the odor. Yes, I agree, the odor's been higher this last year. Every day? No. When I read comments like every single day it stinks in High River, I'm in the Northwest a lot. I don't smell it every single day, but there are days it's bad. So I think we need to tackle this as two sort of separate issues. One is the biodigester and whether or not it's good for dealing with the manure. If it is, then that's something that I think would be good for High River. If it doesn't help us in dealing with the manure, I don't see the advantages of having it. I'm disappointed in some of the allegations and some of the attacks made on our mayor. He's been mayor of High River since 2013. Some of you were here then. Some of you may not have been. I ran against him. He kicked my ass. Oops, I can't say that word, can I? Yeah. I ran against him as mayor in 2013, and he kicked my butt. But I have to say, I attended every council meeting after that in 2013, 2014, and on. And I have absolutely no doubt that every single thing that Mayor Snodgrass does is for this town and for the residents in this town. Thank you.
Thanks, Jamie. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass. Again, as Jamie Kinghorn has said, they are two separate issues that when talking with members of the community have sort of lumped together as one. I am not in favor of trying to shut down or buy out the feedlot. I would love to work together with them to figure out a solution. I am not 100%, there's no guarantee or for sure that the biodigester is the answer to that. I am no specialist when it comes to the biodigester, but as a council member, I feel I've done my due diligence and looking at information, gathering information, talking to community members, and I really do appreciate when community members do get together for a common purpose. But I also feel that they're going out advocating for a community is causing actually a lot of harm in doing so. Right now, that negativity, misinformation, anxiety that they're putting out there right at this moment is causing more issues than the smell in our town is at the moment, in my opinion. As a council member, I want to make sure that these legitimate issues are looked at, that they're addressed. I mean, knowledge is key to any decision making, which is really, really important to me. I am in favor of advocating to make sure that all legitimate concerns are identified and procedures are in place, you know, that meet or exceed the standards that are set out by some of these governing bodies. I will continue to do my due diligence in educating myself, but it is really imperative that we sort of, what is legitimate and what is just fear-mongering at this moment. I'm feeling that a lot, especially in looking at some of these Facebook page posts. So that's my 2 cents.
Thanks, Jenny. Councillor Walsh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With regards to the feedlot and the biodigester, I think we're all saying the same thing in that it's 2 separate issues. The biodigester kind of came on the heels of the feedlot reopening, and I only moved to High River in 2017, so the smell is new to me and really horrible. That being said, renewable resources such as the biodigester, this is something that we're going to see. I think going forward, we're going to see a lot of that. And in reference to what Councillor Jones says, our own due diligence and making sure that your questions are heard, our questions are answered and heard, and that we're confident that we have an operation that is safe and not going to impact us negatively. It is a reality that the feedlot is there. It's going to continue to be there. It's not realistic to think that we should shut it down or any other business that we find distasteful in any way. We have to find a workable solution around it. The suggestion of having our pond covered versus open air, I think is a really, really good step towards protecting us and the smell that we all find so terribly offensive. So that being said, going forward, I think we're on the right path asking all the questions. We know where and when we should step in the intervenor status, continuing to hear things such as the letters from John Blake. And at the same time, we also do take it very seriously and read the comments on Facebook. Sometimes it's hard, but I would encourage everybody publicly. Our emails are all on the town page, and I can say for myself for sure, and I think the rest of council, if you email, we will respond. That's what we're here for. That's all. Thank you.
Thanks, Brenda. Councillor Barton.
Thank you, Mayor. I think councillors that have talked here previously have captured pretty much everything that I was hoping to be said. I think the one piece, though, that I do want to, that kind of hit me hard here earlier when we were talking about it is there's kind of mudslinging going around. There's people out there on the Facebook pages that are actually mentioning names of councillors and trying to undermine them, and unbeknownst to us, because honestly, there's a lot of the stuff that gets put on that particular Facebook page that is, I don't want to say fear-mongering, but there's a lot of it going on. Like, we need to deal with the facts of what we have here. Not, yeah, we can learn from the other pieces of other projects, other biodigesters, but the one thing that I have noticed as I did go through the page last night, there's very little talk about the ones that are really successful. So I think we need to give them a chance just to kind of present their case. My opinion, I don't think my opinion only. I think Tidewater didn't do a very good job of dealing with this right up front, but that's what we're dealing with right now, right? We gotta hear all the facts, and then we will. When it's time for us to apply for intervenor status, then we'll discuss that and go forward. So that's all I got to say right now.
Thanks, Jamie. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass. I too echo the comments put forward today by my co-counsel, and I believe that absolutely everybody at this forum put their hat in the ring and stood up for High River because they had the best interests of our community at heart. I don't think anybody here is not trying to represent our community to the best of our ability and for the best of the people who live here. And we've done our work to be educated, contrary to some of these comments that have been put forward. We are continuing to be educated, and we are continuing to listen to the voices with credible information that we can apply and put to use for the service of our community. I do believe that the biodigester boils down to maintenance and design. Proper maintenance, proper design. And so I don't wish to entertain any more counterintuitive actions, and I saw the comments on Facebook today for the first time, and I was actually very disheartened and saddened that people would feel that we would not be acting in our community's best interest. That's not why we're here. So I don't think that we are in a position to do much until we can apply for intervenor status, if that's the direction of council at this point. And so until there's a decision, that's where it rests for me. But I support our mayor in his actions for our community, and I believe that everybody represented here is acting in that same good interest and best faith. So, thank you.
Thanks, Kelly. So there's two things that we can do. I've got my motion for just a formal letter, Town High River letterhead to provide to AEP, Tidewater, and Rimrock. We can do that. We can do that today. There's no harm in doing that. It's not got anything to do with intervenor status or anything else. It's just putting it out there to them. And Michael and I have verbally asked AEP about it. We've verbally and emailed with Tidewater and Rimrock about containing that liquid digestate. Don't know where that's going, if it's getting any traction, but I think it's important if we can get just a letter from us to all three entities stating this is our request, that if this project goes forward, that this absolutely has to be dealt with. The Lethbridge facility, that's what I'm seeing is one of the biggest differences down there. Yes, it's a smaller facility. I am not directly comparing that to this. It's just the closest example of what we're looking at. That's all it is. The difference I see is the fact that Lethbridge is fully contained. The liquid digestate is fully contained. They have had, and I talked to NRCB, the Lethbridge biogas facility has had one complaint since opening to the NRCB since opening in 2017. One. So I want to go down there. We've requested a tour. I've gone through the Lethbridge facility, then to the ownership Skyline Energy in Ontario. Now we're back to the Alberta guy. Last week I talked with him. He's getting me a tour lined up, or us a tour lined up. Don't know when, but they're supposed to be getting a hold of me this week. So I want to get down there to see one of these places. So we can write the letter just to do it. And then we can deal with the intervenor status when that day comes. Of course, we've already agreed to that. That was a council decision a couple meetings ago. And we can do that. We do the letter today and deal with intervenor status tomorrow, or we can just wait for intervenor status. I would much rather get ahead of any design issues, get it there now. Even though we've been talking about it, I think an official letter to them now with our request is important. So, Councillor Kinghorn.
Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass. I'd concur with your comments that we should actually put that letter out to them as soon as possible because they are in a development stage in design. And I'm with you. I've been past that facility in Lethbridge. It is contained and there is no odor. I do a lot of work in that Picture Butte, Lethbridge area. I think we should put it together and get it out to them. Do you need a motion for that, or?
I've got one written that I.
Okay, thanks.
Councillor Nychuk.
Sorry, agreement with Councillor Kinghorn on the letter, but more to the public. Phrase this appropriately. I haven't had myself, I've been involved with this for some time, obviously, and I haven't seen the negative sides of it. I don't play on Facebook. I don't go there. It's a cesspool. I don't want to talk to anybody on Facebook. You want to come and talk to me, I'll make time available. You can talk to me by phone, you can email me, we can get together for a coffee. I'm all about that. I'm not about hiding behind a keyboard and a screen and not putting your name to something and putting it out there in the public. That's just, sorry, it's chicken shit. I've got no respect for that. For somebody to have untoward comments about our mayor, is opinion is fine. To point fingers and make accusations is entirely another thing. And to paint somebody in a negative light that has dedicated themselves for the last 10 years to that chair, and has gone through the things that we as councillors have and as a community has, and say he has anything but the best interests of this town at heart, is entirely false. And if somebody wants to come to me and talk to me about that, that's fine. Come, bring it. I'll gladly sit there and talk to you about the time and dedication that that individual has put into that chair. And I'll do that with High River residents. If you're a county resident, go to the county and have your fight there. I'm more than happy to help and support people in the county, but once they get involved and they start defaming people that are sitting at this council desk, that gets me right upset. Stay in the county then. Don't come to us and ask for help and then go and drive the bus over us after that. Won't handle it, won't take it anymore. I don't know how people think or understand positions like this work. Everything isn't out on the street, open in public. We do a lot of things at our homes in the evenings, from our desks of our workplace, together in all the council meetings, the board meetings, the community meetings we have. And people seem to think that maybe this is the only place we do business, as when we meet here the second and fourth Monday of every month. It goes far beyond that. So to Mayor Snodgrass's point about writing a letter, that's one small thing. It becomes a public thing, but it's one small thing in an absolute plethora of other things that have been done. I would like Craig's cell phone. I would love it, because he's got contacts with everybody from municipal government to provincial government to federal government. He has a good contact list, and he's been utilizing that to the benefit of this community in not just this situation, but other situations. So I'm thankful for that. I would hope that maybe speaking about it here, other people can be thankful for that, because that's what this is. This is a lobby. This isn't something that the town of High River can turn a switch or push a button or say no and it all goes away. It becomes something that we have to do from the outside of the context of the rules, regulation, and the policy and procedure that's there. And we're trying to do that. And we're trying to do that while we're learning about what this is as well. Since the start, I've said I'm opposed to the digester. That's me. I'm not scared of the H2S. I'm not scared of the smell. I just don't want an industrial facility kind of in my backyard. And that's just me. Maybe that's right or wrong. There are industrial facilities in the middle of municipal communities. This one, I just want to look west, and I don't want to see big buildings. I don't want to see tall flare stacks. That's just me. Doesn't mean it's right or wrong. That's just my opinion. But with the way the world is going nowadays, and we're looking for alternative sources of energy and renewable situations and green initiatives and all that kind of stuff, I've become reserved to the fact that maybe I have to look at this in a different lens, even if I don't like it being there. It's in my backyard, so to speak. I have to make assurances that the governments I trust that are entrusted to make sure these things run properly, meaning the government of Alberta or the federal government of Canada, that I, in the way possible for me in this seat as an elected official of the residents of this community, that I can be present to have a voice. And not a voice just for myself, but a voice for the community, so that I can make sure that I'm comfortable, and in that comfort, be able to bring that forward to residents like yourself sitting here and whoever's watching in cyberspace. There's concerns. The gas is a concern. The effect to watershed is a concern. All those things are a concern, and we don't take that lightly at all in any way, shape, or form. So what we can do in these chairs is be present at those conversations and raise those concerns in a constructive, democratic, amenable way where we are not a pitchfork and torch crew that are yelling and screaming by the top of our lungs, that we are doing so from an educated perspective. But that also doesn't mean you can't do it from a passionate place. If anything, I've known since moving here and living here since 2001 is that this community is incredibly passionate about the place and the people. That's what brought me to this chair. That's why I've continued to run again, because I feel I can still contribute. Because I come from that place. I run a business in town. I've never sat at this chair and said, what can I do today sitting in this chair that will benefit the business? Never crossed my mind. It's always been about the people and the place. I just wanted to make that really clear, that every single person sitting at this table, and I'm sure every person sitting in a chair here, has those same feelings, those same sentiments, that same passion about where we live. Otherwise, we would live in Calgary, Winnipeg, Toronto, wherever it might be. But we choose to be here. So I usually speak about updates and information that I have, and today was an opportunity that we wanted all of us as council to communicate. And I thank council for speaking up and raising their voices and giving your position. But I wanted to make sure that people really understood that because we're not seeing a roadblock being put up to something that we have a concern about, doesn't mean that we're not working to try to have the best outcome for our community. We hear everybody, from the people that are yelling and screaming to the people that aren't saying anything. We hear and see it all on a daily basis. And we take all that to heart when we come here and we make decisions and we try to do the work that the community needs. So I'll leave that piece, but I will bring up one piece of communication, because Craig talked about misinformation that's out there. So this was recent, but I've seen it before. Somebody brought up the question of why doesn't the town of High River buy the feedlot and close it down? And they put it in the context of, you're spending money on a pool expansion on a piece of property that is a swamp. So somebody put this, I don't know if this was an email or if it was social media, but the pool is an amenity for the community, for young and old alike. We've had the same pool for some years, so we're doing some work there. We're trying to make something better for the community, so hey, a mom and a tot, or a dad and a tot, don't have to go to Okotoks to go to a zero entry pool. That's where you don't have to stand on a table in the shallow end at the Bob Snodgrass Center and give your kids swimming lessons, because we don't have that kind of facility. So spending the money is one thing. Do we have that kind of resource to go and buy a piece of property and shut somebody's business down and banish them? No. The other piece was that the pool is built on a swamp, and if that person wants to come and meet with me, I'll have our CAO, Mr. Prosser, arrange a tour, and we can go underneath the pool, because I've been under it, and it's dry as heck. I didn't get muddy. I didn't drown. It's not sinking. There's lots of misinformation out there. I just wanted to bring that particular piece up because it drove me a little bit crazy. People like to talk stuff, and sometimes they don't know what they're talking about. And if you want to know what you're talking about and you got a question and you're not sure about the information that you have on that particular thing, be it the pool or be it whatever, we're available. Administration is available. You can come to the front desk and you can leave your name, and one of us will call you and we'll answer your questions for you. If we don't know the answer, we'll find the answer. That was a pretty long go there, so I'll just cut it off.
No, it's why we're here, and it's why we went there today, Michael. So, everybody's got to understand that we all put our hands up for these positions, and all of us are the exact same way. But just because you get mad and you come and you say you need to do this, doesn't mean I'm going to do that, or any member of this council. That's not how we make decisions, that just because you come at us mad that, oh, we better do that. That's a completely irresponsible way to sit on this bench. You just take the angry ones and, oh, I better do as they say. That doesn't work that way. So everybody just needs to get that on Facebook. It doesn't do anything, and any elected official in any community or provincial or federal politics that does that is not somebody you want at the table. We take all of it in, whether it's positive, negative, angry, emails, Facebook, we take all of it in, but when we put our hand up at this desk, I have to put my hand up for what I feel is the best direction for this community, period. It's not like you're not being heard or listened to or anything else. We got to take it all, dump it on the table and sift through it and figure out, where am I at? Where do I feel the best direction is for the town of High River? So, I'm going to ask for a motion, or I'm going to make the motion that council send a formal letter to Alberta Environment and Parks, Tidewater Renewables, and Rimrock Feeders, demanding that the liquid digestate be fully contained with the biodigester facility at Rimrock Feedlot, and that no open lagoons will be allowed. Motion's on the table. Any questions? Comments? All in favor? Carried. There you have it. Board and committee reports from council. Anything council wants to report on? Councillor Smith?
Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass. I just wanted to let you know the Chamber of Commerce will be hosting their annual AGM on Wednesday, March 29th at Mr. Mike's. It is open for people to attend for dinner starting at 6 p.m. with the meeting starting at 7:30. That is this coming Wednesday, March 29th at Mr. Mike's.
Thank you. Anyone else? Nothing? Board and committee minutes, the Museum of the Highwood Board meeting minutes is in the agenda, and I will open it up. Any public comments regarding items that were discussed at today's meeting? Randall? And I'll need you to, as usual, come forward so that we can get you on the live stream on the mic, please.
Hi. My name's Randall Worthington. I just wanted to make a comment and ask a question about something. The first comment was about the MGA. And my experience with the Municipal Government Act has been that all things being equal, there's a deference to the public. Like the Municipal Government Act was never designed to be punishing. It was designed to be all-inclusive. So with respect to the decision you made, it was a good decision. Thanks for that. And the question that I have with regards to the motion that you just made, I understand that there are two distinct entities, i.e. the Council of High River and the Council of I keep saying the MD of Foothills, but Foothills County. Is there any indication of them being on the same page?
You would have to ask them.
Okay, fair enough. Thanks very much.
Yeah. And that's why, you know, the motion, I specifically did not involve the Foothills County in it, because Foothills County, on what we're talking about, holds no stroke in that. This is what we're asking for is completely up to those three entities. So thanks, Randall. Anyone else? Ma'am?
This seat?
Sure.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me all right?
Uh,
Maybe I'll lean in a bit. Thank you. I'm sorry I'm a bit late. I wanted to briefly have the opportunity to briefly chat with council regarding a request for a more thorough assessment of impacts of the proposed...
What's your name first?
My name's Jeanette.
Jeanette Hall?
Yes.
Okay, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Just for an assessment of the impacts of the proposed biodigester on the health of citizens by the Federal Ministry of Environment. The Canadian Council Ministry of Environment, or as we call the CCME, mandates that developments involving hazardous waste, pipelines, or that may be precedent setting in new design, which I do believe this biodigester is. So within a unique case is assessed by the federal ministry. I would suggest this because Canada's food supply may become intricately linked and dependent on this new biodigester. That's likely that new NRCB feedlot approvals waste disposal will likely hinge on this biodigesters once it's built and designed. And if that biodigester were to ever go offline, it would severely interrupt the ability for processed beef to continue through our food system, our global food system. So in that regards, it also poses a bit of a national food risk as well. I understand that it's not your council's decision as to whether or not these types of developments go through, because these are regulated by third-party groups like the NRCB and Alberta Environment and the energy regulators. And it's difficult for councils such as yourself because you don't want to take a side. We do want to support industry, but we also want to make sure that our communities are healthy and our citizens are taken care of. And that's why when we reach these very critical types of developments, when we can rely on the Canadian Council Ministry of Environment, it's a way for us in council and for other governments to take our hands off and say, you know what, we don't actually have all the technical expertise to be able to make these huge decisions or give input. It's a way to just say, maybe federal biologists who have a better understanding of the full scale of impacts to these things can do a full-scale assessment, and that way we can all rest assured knowing that our health has been properly assessed and considered before this goes any further. So I think that's a great idea of closing the lagoons and making sure it's all enclosed in tanks. That was, in my opinion, a very smart thing to do. Another, I at this time would like to recommend a federal environmental impact assessment, because it again just makes sure that we're all taking the most caution that we can. Thank you.
Jeanette, while you're there, we were just, before you came, there was lots of discussion around the Facebook page and everything else and what's been posted on there. Because you're here, it's great. I got a question for you.
Sure.
Because there's an accusation in here that you've said that I need clarity on, saying that the town's wastewater is not properly managed. Can you explain what you mean by that?
Sure. So I am as you can see, I'm a livestock producer. And at one time, I had a lease along Frank Lake. Under the CFIA, which stands for the Canadian Food and Drug Agency, the CFIA, I'm required to know what my animals might consume. And being next to Frank Lake, I needed to know what was going into the lake. So because of that, I was privy to what's coming out of the Cargill pipe. And in that, I worked very closely with a lot of the Alberta environment officers in the area. And I'm aware that there have been a lot of issues with how High River manages the wastewater. And from what I've been told and from what I've understood with Alberta environment regulators was that managing the wastewater became some limitations on proposed growth of the town and how are we going to adapt and change. So I'm hearing that through Alberta environment officers that in the past it's been an issue with what do we do with our wastewater here? Do we start building a plant or whatever? I don't know. It wasn't any of my business. But I do understand that Alberta Environment had worked on, I think it might have been proposed or it might have gone ahead, of diverting some of the waste in, or the after the wastewater's been processed into Frank Lake and into that waterway. Does that clarify?
Yeah, no, and we're on the same page. So,
Okay.
so yeah, like it's not not new.
No, I have heard people. I do understand that a lot. I myself, I'm not. I am a very calm person, and I do understand and appreciate that you guys are taking a lot of people's frustrations. And I have done my best in talking with people and trying to educate people to remain calm and not to take it out on council. And someone did say, oh, well, the Cargill, I think they had mentioned that the Cargill waste or wastewater goes into High River. And I said, actually, no, it doesn't.
No,
So I am aware that there has been some misinformation about that.
Yeah, so what Jeanette's talking about is that the AEP regulations changed on the amount of, it's phosphorus and what else, Riley?
Nitrate.
Nitrates, right? There's a specific one in there, but the big piece with Frank Lake is the phosphorus load and it's the town of High River and Cargill. Our treated effluent goes into Frank Lake. It's just the way it is. So are we operating and mismanaging that facility? No. What has happened is the regulation has changed and we have to now meet. We're sitting in front of what, a $40 million facility that Alberta Environment is pushing on us. We're asking, how the hell do you want us to pay for that? But we got no problem in doing it. That's easy. That's fine. We'll do it. You show me the money and we're good. So I just wanted to clarify what you kind of meant there, but it is definitely, we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, but there's an upgrade that's absolutely necessary to meet the current AEP. We are working with AEP and they're holding us to it, but it's been brought up and talked about in this council chambers that no problem, but you can't put a $40 million project and just shove it on a town of 15,000 people and say, go do it. You didn't like your 2.2% tax increase. Good God. Let me tell you what $40 million would look like.
I can't speak to this because I'm sorry. I'm
I'll let you
ignorant
go.
to this topic.
That's what I needed.
May I just quickly make a comment about the phosphorus and the change with Alberta Environment in their, we call it a Tier 2 water surface pump-off criteria. So phosphorus it is very integral that we as Albertans consider this, especially right now with interprovincial pollution is now becoming a topic. And so what we're seeing in areas like Lethbridge and Brooks, where we have high amounts of phosphorus entering the water and it's now making its way up into Lake Winnipeg, and we're seeing huge die-offs and algae blooms in Lake Winnipeg. And because of our modern farming practices now where we've removed beaver dams and wetlands and we're spraying a lot of phosphorus on our surfaces in our farmers' fields. That does still have major impacts. And it's unfortunate that Alberta Environment, under industry lobbying, removed phosphorus as a monitoring criteria. That has been in there for almost 50 years. And I do think it is in the best interest of Albertans that we get phosphorus and nitrates put back into the surface water monitoring, because I used to drink right out of creeks growing up in Alberta, and you wouldn't do that very often anymore because we don't know what's in our local waters, and it is becoming an issue. So just because it's recently been changed in our regulations, it doesn't mean we're being accountable in processing and managing our waste properly. There are lots of ways we can mitigate phosphates and nitrates, and I do try to help feedlots and other agriculture industries.
Okay, I'm gonna stop, I
advance.
gotta stop you, Jeanette, because we're going down a rabbit hole that,
Sure, no, I know, but
that's a
it's-
whole
you understand
different
what I'm
world
saying.
down that one, right? So I appreciate it. Thanks very much, Jeanette. Anybody else, public comments? We're good. Council correspondence requiring action. This one has to do with support requests for Culture Days. So I'll ask for a motion from Councillor Barton that council authorize the mayor to sign the letter of support for the High River Performing Arts Foundation for Culture Days 2023.
You have a motion, Mayor?
Thank you very much. All in favor? Carried. Council correspondence, the information, it's all there in the letter from BGC. Rimrock, 15-minute cities project for Mayor Snodgrass. This 15-minute cities one is beyond weird where this thing's gone and where people have taken this one. It's just strange. All that it means is that the 15-minute city concept is that it doesn't really pertain to High River. We've been a 15-minute city since our day of existence, and what it means is that you have access to your amenities within 15 minutes of your home. That's all it means. That's it. So when you look at a city like the city of Calgary, that's what they've always tried to do. That's why you see these cluster developments like Seton or Lake Bonavista, geez, go down the list. It's always been that way. So I don't know why it's taken such a right-hand turn into a really weird world, but I'll leave that for another day. But connecting the world through public works, email thanking Councillor Barton. Well done, Jamie. Email and attachments regarding High River sustainability. And other than that, meeting adjourned. Give me a clock that works.